I'm very excited about this panel discussion, and Pastor, being part of this shows you what both you and I believe in, and that is community, and the essence of those helpers, those providers to help families who are in crisis. From, if you look at Uri Bronfenbrenner's theory from almost 50 years ago. If you don't know of Dr. Uri Bronfenbrenner was the founder of Head Start. He conceived it and he sold it to Washington. And actually it was under Clinton that it became funded. And Bronfenbrenner said, essentially mirroring what we know from the phrase, it takes a village. He said, if you take a look at what people need, what children, adults, and extended family, we all need to understand the affects of our environment and how they affect us from inside our home to our neighborhood, to our schools, to our workplace, to our places of spiritual support, and to TV and to radio, to media, to politics. All of these have a direct influence on each and every one of us, and especially upon children who are soaking up information and trying to understand the world that they do not yet thrive in. And so what we are wanting to do now is to begin with that understanding that Bronfenbrenner said, and which is to look at the psycho-social, therapeutic, the emotional context of our lives and all those factors that really give us a sense of who we are by identity, by action, by choice, by values. And I think beginning now with this conversation, and I know we are still waiting for two attorneys to come, and they are really excited about being here. I know that they will be here. One is an alienated parent who is now working in behalf of parents who are alienated. I think that you're really going to appreciate that, counselor. Pastor, I'm going to ask you if you would address for all of us the nature of your work as a pastoral counselor and the issues that come forward, and what not only do we would want to hear, but advice that you may want to give other clergy leaders when working with families instead of avoiding them, because I understand that that's an option, and many of them sadly have admitted to me that they avoid those conversations. They have an opportunity to save a family, to save a child. There's a conversation that must be had. So I would like to invite you to share your experience and your advice, if you don't mind.
Absolutely. Well, let me say, first of all, I believe one of the most important aspects of dealing with the needs that we deal with our community, one of the most important aspects is availability. I do pastor a very large church, a lot of people, but I do know that one of the reasons that our church is strong is because myself and I have also 8 other pastors here. We are accessible. So, I don't pastor on Sunday and then hide for the rest of the week and then pastor, on Sunday. But we're here, we work here. We deal with a ton of issues. Availability is the number one aspect of all of this. People in crisis need someone that they can touch. And so that aspect of it, where we actually say the door is open. Matter of fact, I have what's called an open door policy. The door is open. And that helps to strengthen, number one, the families that are in our community, in our church. They don't have to be members of our church to get help here. That's huge also. We never say you have to be a member of our church to get help here. If you need help and we can help, we offer that help and that assistance, and that's what we're here for. So availability is number one. I believe that we have to throw our doors open, and when we see needs, we have to endeavor to meet those needs or direct people towards the people that we know, the partners that we have that can actually help to address those needs. The second thing from my standpoint is prevention. You know, we offer premarital counseling here, and you have no idea how much solid counseling from the inception of the family will sort of curtail a lot of the things that lead to the breakdown of the family, the separation of the children. You know, I always say it like this: things don't go wrong, they begin wrong. And most of the time that people face crises in marriage that lead to separation is because they never got solid pastoral or counseling instruction. Mine happens to be pastoral, but they never got solid counseling and instruction to know how to deal with the adversities that are inevitable that will come in life. The third thing I believe is important is people need examples. My wife and I have been married for 28 years. Our relationship is terminal, meaning that someone has to bury someone in order for us to get out of it. And I believe in, you know, I think Councilman Goose was talking about the old days when there used to be two parents in the home in the black family. Well, we're witnesses that there are black families, there are minority families that still have a husband and a wife, and 28 years married to the same woman. My son is our youth pastor. Above this next floor up is our youth center. My son oversees the youth department of our church, which is about 300 or so kids. My daughter works here part-time as well as in the school system. So we have a strong family, and that helps because I do believe that in the inner city where we are, people need to see strength in leadership that looks like them as well. So I believe example is important. I believe the preventative measures are important. You know, people are afraid to say something when they see people struggling, or people see people struggling. You know it's gonna end badly for the children. Okay? But for some reason, people are afraid to say, you guys need counseling, here's a number. You guys need to talk to my pastor or a counselor, here's a number. So I do believe that we have to be a little forthright. You know, I've been known, if I find out about an issue, for example, I found out about an issue in passing where there was domestic violence going on in one of our families here in the last month. Well, it wasn't, you don't pray about that. You don't pray about domestic violence. You don't. So, of course, my approach was I want a meeting with husband and I want a meeting with wife. And I want to address this directly so that he knows it's not safe for you to abuse her here. It's not safe because we will lay hands on you and it won't be of a godly sort. No. But again, he needed help. She needed help, but then more importantly, they needed to be able to drag that situation into the light and get counsel and deal with the anger and learn how to get to the root of the anger, which was more directly going toward the issue and not sweeping issues under the rug. Because again, at the end of the day, is if we don't go toward issues, if we just hide our heads in the sand and pretend like I'm okay, you're okay, we're all okay, then who's going to be the ones greatest affected by it are going to be the children if we don't deal with issues directly and forthrightly. So I believe availability, prevention, setting examples with solid relationships, and then utilizing the strength of our partnership. We know people are in crisis, people are in need. We need not act like, that's not my problem. But be intentional about utilizing community to strengthen families, and so those are some of the ways that we address the issues of our family. I will say this also: we've been in this neighborhood now for 16 years. Our ministry has been in existence for 18 years, and I'm grateful, even though I don't like divorce and separation. I can count the number of divorces on both of my hands in this church and have a finger or two left over. Because we've seen strong marriages come from preventative maintenance and teaching people how to be married and how to work through the variables and adversities of life. And then also, as I mentioned, multiple, my assistant pastors counsel marriages, elders counsel marriages, the marriage seminars and workshops, one-on-ones that go on a regular basis to keep the family strong from the beginning.
Pastor, I want to thank you very much. I am really pleased to tell you that we had really an esteemed panel. And what I want to do is tell you that we're blessed that we have one of our attorneys has just come, who herself has been a targeted parent and is, as an attorney, has some very important motivation in the work that she's doing, and I would like, and her, I'm also pleased to say that she has her daughter with her as well. And I want to invite, because all of us, we know 6 degrees of separation, and we know that as a term. But 6 degrees of separation also means in terms of people who know people that have experienced what we have, that have experienced what we work with, that have experienced what we're trying to treat, that have experienced with what we're trying to prevent. And we are so blessed because we have such a panel here today. And so with your leadership in working with parents now, at times that they have the opportunity to be safe is really critical. Because when that does not happen, and when there's not a willingness to save oneself, then, and I'm not talking simply abandoning ship, it's different than abandoning a marriage. And a marriage can be saved sometimes, sometimes not, but I think we have to understand how we can save all the parties, whether it's an agreement to dissolve the relationship. And Counselor, pardon me, I know it's Lori.
Oh, Leslie.
Leslie.
Yeah. Leslie Federico.
I apologize.
Yeah.
I want you to know that your role here is really critical because you bring both the Roman Colosseum as well as the spectators' perspective. Yeah. And I hope you don't mind me saying that, but I would like you to offer us a encapsulated journey that you have had, and also the importance of the work that you are currently doing, and what we're going to do. And then I know your daughter Ashley also is interested in sharing some words. And I would also like you to know that in advance of the film, at 7, I would like you to share more words, if that's all right, with Dawn.
Okay.
Okay, that would be excellent. So, Counselor, if you would, and then Ashley, and then to Kim, to Danica, to Jen, is that all right? Yes, please.
I guess just to give you kind of a look back on what led me to become a lawyer, because I think becoming a lawyer was a second field for me later in life. After I had gone through, I would say probably the worst trauma of my life in 2011. That was when, I'd gotten a divorce when my daughter was 2 years old, and it was a high conflict divorce, but we still managed to co-parent where she could go back and forth and have relationships with both parents. In 2011, I lost my business, and it was a really bad year for me. During this time, my ex-husband took it upon himself to file an emergency motion and take my daughter, and we lived 3 hours apart. So there was not going to be a 50-50 because of the distance. So, at that time, I had no money. I lost my business. I went to legal aid. I was denied anything from legal aid. I started phoning local attorney offices, asking them to help me. I remember one attorney's office told me, I just had bad luck. I mean, that was the answer to me. So I had to collect whatever information I could, and I had to get myself 3 hours away to go to an emergency motion hearing to hope that I could have my daughter continue to stay in my life. At this point, like I said, I had no money. I didn't even have a car. I mean, that's how bad it was. So I was able to get down to South Florida. I went to the emergency motion because I didn't understand the legal system and I didn't know how to present evidence. The judge, I got nowhere. And actually, I walked out of the courtroom with supervised visitation on Saturdays, and that was it. And now, as I'm a lawyer, I look back and there was no grounds for any of that. So, I didn't know this at the time. I was extremely hopeless, helpless. I went back, I remember I went back to Orlando, and I'd never experienced pain of actually wailing and hitting. Like, that, it was the most pain I'd ever received had in my life. I felt like the death of a child. I mean, that's really, because I was so close with my daughter, and to think I couldn't see her, or if I was to see her, it was for just a 6-hour little block. I didn't, and not only that, but I had no attorney, so how was I gonna get in this system or get beyond where I was? I didn't want to live anymore, to be honest with you. It was a real dark time for me, really dark. And I finally started going through people that I knew, and I reached out to an attorney that I had known when I was, he was a friend of mine that I met when I was 17 years old. He's now my husband. We ended up getting married through this whole process. But I reached out to him, and he gave me a loan so that I could retain an attorney down in South Florida to at least get me out of the supervised visitation cycle that I was in. The attorney down there drained me financially. I was $35,000 to get to the mediation. And by this time, she was already enrolled in school down there. The courts weren't going to disrupt that. I was able to eventually get unsupervised visitation, but then I was forced to sign a mediation settlement agreement that I was not in agreement with, but the only reason I signed it was because it was better than what I had. But again, I didn't have money to see it go all the way through to trial. Would I have won in trial, according to my attorney now, to be looking back? Absolutely, because there wasn't grounds for substantial change in circumstances. But the problem became, well, do I have the money to sustain all the way till the end? And at that time, I couldn't ask my friend, to give me another $40,000. So I had to settle, and I had to make the best of it. And I felt like every time I had my daughter, I would try to make the most memories that I could. I would try to let her experience memories, in Orlando, create networks of friends down in South Florida with me. Eventually, it started to get really bad as far as one of the step parents getting involved, which really put a damper on things, really bad. So my daughter ended up, she can tell you whatever she wants to tell you, because I don't want to speak on all of that, but she ended up coming back to live with me, and it wasn't done out of consent. It was done basically because that's what she wanted to do, and there was no turning back. But then by the time she came to live with me, it was so difficult because I didn't have her the whole way through. I was the weekend parent. I didn't have where I'd slowly give her freedoms and slowly parent her. And his household was so different from my household, and the way that he implemented discipline versus how I implemented discipline. And she had lower self-esteem because she felt like, because of the conflict, that she came from these two families. She didn't really want to go out there and interact with kids that came from strong, put-together families. She wanted to interact with the kids that had the problems because that's who she identified herself with. So she ended up meeting some kids that weren't the best kids for her, and I didn't know how to get her away from them other than to send her back to her dad's or a boarding school. And this is when she was 15. Her dad did not want to pay for a boarding school, and he said, she can come back, but he disliked me so much that he said, if she comes back, I want you completely out. Like, you're gone. You're out of her life. So here I was left with, okay, she integrated with these really bad kids, could have potentially killed her, could have ended her up pregnant. I mean, there's a lot of things that could have happened. Or do I send her back to her dad's, lose my relationship with her, but know that she's safe? That's ultimately where I was left. And at that point, I said, well, I'm going to send her back to her dad's, because I couldn't live with the fact that if something happened to her and she was in too deep and these kids would not go away. There was no going away for these kids. So I sent her back to her dad's. But the problem is that eventually I did want communication of some capacity, and it never happened. And so I was a good full year with no contact. I would reach out, asking, inquiring, but there was no contact. And I felt this, I felt like a death, and I went through all these emotions of, it's like, what is the purpose in being a parent? Do I just detach myself emotionally? There's just so many things. That's a whole nother discussion. So, but when all this took place, during this time, I went to law school, got remarried, had 3 more kids, and I decided I wanted to go to law school because I told my attorney at mediation that day that I realized I was going to have to sign a mediated settlement agreement that I didn't agree with. I said, I'm going to become an attorney, and I'm going to make sure that nobody that I come across is going to ever have to live in my shoes, ever. Because, I mean, it was like a big deal. Okay, I mean, it really, like, I don't want to get into the details, but it was that low for me, okay? So I found purpose, you know, becoming an attorney, and it was hard. I mean, my lowest grade in law school was in family law because I was so emotionally attached to it, you know? And I remember meeting with my family law professor, who was a judge in family law, because I was so angry at my grade, I couldn't understand. I mean, this was my passion, it was my lowest grade in law school. And, you know, she said, don't let this deceive you. This doesn't mean you're not going to be a good family law attorney, you know? But anyway, so I ended up getting into family law, and I, you know, for the most part, I took on, different cases, whether they were divorce or paternity or child support. But recently, I found a case that I felt like I was reliving my life in. And in a case like that, you know, you can't win these cases, I don't believe, unless either one, you have a crap load of money, or 2, you find an attorney who is passionate and will go to every length for you. I mean, there's no, and the reason when you're dealing with I'll say an alienation case, or a case where, say, one of the parents is not abiding by the MSA agreements, time is your enemy, and the courts are really hard. Unless you are that persistent attorney, you will not take no for an answer, and you are a pain in the butt to everybody. And that takes time. And a lot of attorneys will charge you for every little minute, as if you've gone through the court systems, you'll know that. So you really, when you're dealing with those types of cases, you really have to hit like a steamroller. I mean, you got to go fast, you know. And I mean, I'll answer more questions about, you know, the technicalities on that, I guess later or whatever. But what the issue that I see right now, that I think, you know, really, if I can give you insight. Now again, I don't know where everybody's coming from, and every case is unique. But the issue that I see is that people get a divorce and they sit down in mediation and they sign a marital settlement agreement, and they just think, okay, this is the way it's going to be. But the problem is the post-dissolution. The problem is enforcing that agreement. What if one party doesn't abide by that agreement? What if you don't have the money to keep going back to court? Because the only way to enforce the agreement is to file a motion for contempt. So if you don't have the money, every time I tried to file a motion for contempt, my attorney wanted $2,000. If you don't have the money, what happens? You know, so then people give up. So and then of course if you get finally the motion for contempt, and you know, you bring it before the judge, then judge has discretion whether or not the judge wants to find that party in contempt. And what I've seen is if the judge decides, I don't like to put a lot of parties in contempt, so I'm going to kind of give them a warning, or I don't want litigation all the time, then what happens is the parent that wasn't abiding by that contract leaves with even more of a power trip, because you didn't get them down, you know, and then it becomes this power struggle, and the ones that ultimately suffer are the kids, you know. And so I don't know if there's specifics. I mean, there's so many angles I could go around, but that's kind of the issue that I see at this point.
Thank you. You know, yeah. Counselor, thank you very much. I really feel so important, especially, you know, Ashley, you may have heard or not, but for those that are here, to understand what a parent experiences using the system. When I first introduced the concept of the Toby Center and what we do and why, I brought you through some of the challenges that parents have, and the counselor articulated very well all the frustrations that are costly in time, costly in money, and also costly in hope. Because how do you have hope? You only have hope when you either believe that there is possibility, when you believe that there is a way to make something happen, or you don't have hope. And when you're constantly shot down, it's not easy to believe that at some point you may succeed. But again, the court is a minefield. If you're not an attorney, you don't have that experience, to go by yourself is extremely difficult and frustrating, and especially because we don't know. As a parent, you don't know what next steps are. You have to be taught what next steps are. And unless you have a good clerk in the court, you're not going to get to know this. and you're going to continue to be frustrated, and you may be driven to drink, you may be driven to drug abuse, you may yourself be driven to murder. In Connecticut, about 16 years ago, there was a case where a father who was a state policeman was felt victimized in family court. He went out, he shot his wife, he shot the attorney, killed the attorney, killed the wife, and the attorney died within 24 hours, and he killed himself. I mean, and so the frustrations can cause you to do things that are irrational and are insufferable. And but this is a good case. This is a case where there was perseverance, where there was hope, and there was opportunities that you created, Counselor, that you made for yourself. You found the resources, you found people that believed in you, and you were able to achieve. But you also know the realities that everybody else suffers. And some of us here today are targeted parents for 20 years. So, you know, we all get it. There's some that this is new for. But this is really critical. And actually, if I can invite you to speak a bit, I'd like you to maybe 5 minutes or so now, is that all right? And each panelist another 5 minutes or so, because 6:15, we're having concluding benediction, we're having signing, then we're going to have a break. And the movie is going to be at 7, Erasing Families, which is going to be really critical for those people that want to know where hope comes from, in spite of the frustrations. There's this documentary that shows children who, as yourself, were able to reunify with their parents. So, actually, thank you for being here. Let's give applause.
So, as you heard, this is my mom. My name is Ashley. I'm 17, and I just moved back with my mom around 2 months ago. And I was full-time living with my dad after the second time I went back for 2 years. And I had very limited communication with my mom, only through email that I would have to hide, because my father would prevent me from emailing, as well as my stepmom. Because when I moved there the second time, they wanted her out of my life completely, and to replace my stepmom as my mom, and to remove her and her entire family, my siblings, my stepdad, everybody from the side of Orlando, completely out of my life. So it was difficult for me, because when I first moved there, I was kind of distraught, because I didn't expect to move back, and I didn't want to move back, and I didn't want to be in his household, because I knew what it was like, and I was there before. So adjusting to like the new rules and the new lifestyle was like really difficult for me. I ended up doing a lot of good things and finding myself and maturing a lot through it. But in the process of moving there was difficult, because I lost my friends that I had. I lost my mom. I lost my siblings that were just born. They're 5, 4, and 8 months now. And at the time, it was like, I felt like my whole world was like ripped away. And when I went there, it was like, I didn't get to communicate with her at all. And I went through a lot of depression. I had anxiety. I didn't know what to do. I didn't have any friends. I wasn't enrolled in school. I was going every day to work with my dad. He's a chiropractor, and I would go in and help him work. And I wouldn't get paid, but I would run the front desk with him. And that was like my life. And I worked there like 5 days a week, and then on the weekends I would just stay with family. But I had like nothing else going on. So when I first moved there, he enrolled me in Florida virtual school so I could get credit. I started doing that for a while, but again, I was going through so much internally, emotionally, because of the situation that I went through, that it was hard for me to necessarily focus on school and work and helping him and showing a smile and a pretty face when he walked in the doors at his office, when I was just 2 weeks ago at her house living full-time with her. I expected that after a couple months or something, once things started to settle, once I got my stuff together, once I enrolled in school, I started college through early admission program, which I was really fortunate. I was hoping to like start getting my mom back in my life, be able to see my siblings again, be involved with everyone. And my dad kept saying no, and he kept saying, your mom's not ready, you're not ready, give it time. So that went on for 2 months, and it continued. And constantly, every time I wanted the idea of my mom in my life, he would blow it off, brush it away, or make me feel guilty for even asking about her. So this went on for a year. Finally, it was January, and my mom had had enough, because I missed all birthdays, all finally, I started visiting once a month for a weekend at my grandparents' house. My mom would come. I met my baby sister, who was 3 weeks old at the time, but she just had her fourth child, my sixth or fifth sibling. My dad got married and had kids too. So every time I'd leave after a weekend, he'd interrogate me the whole car ride, make me feel guilty for even being there, ask me, is it really worth it? And then he'd make my household with him chaotic the entire time and add drama and blamed our fights in the household on because of my mom. Like, we're fighting, we're having issues in the house, there's tension because of my mom. Or if it was like, if my stepmom was being rude, all of a sudden, oh, she's mad because you visited your mom. And stuff like that would continue. But I would go a month without seeing her, so I wanted communication. And my dad gave me no phone throughout this entire 2 years because he did not want me to contact her. So I did not have a phone the entire time I was living there. So I had a laptop for school, and I had an email account through my school email. So I would try to email her through there. And every time I tried to email, they would stalk it, log into my account, delete her emails, delete my emails, and email as if they were me to her, to get her to stay away from me and for me to stay away from her, cause problems so that she'd get mad at me or I get mad at her and we wouldn't want to talk. So that went on several times to the point where we both were constant having issues because of the issues I was having with my dad getting in between our relationship. And it got so bad that I would have to sneak phone calls with her at my dad's office on his line at work in the very back, and I'd try to call my mom. And every time he'd go and peek out of nowhere and just surprise me, be like, who are you on the phone with? And I'd be honest, I'm on the phone with my mom. Get off the phone. No, put the phone down. You need to be working on school. You need to be doing this and that. You don't need to be talking to your mom. So every time I'd get off the phone, he'd call me into his office and interrogate me about our conversations, and then make me feel guilty for calling, or make me feel like she's taking me away from my school, or she's taking me away from being happy, or I'm feeling emotional, not because I miss her, but because of the pain she's been putting me through. And constantly try to brainwash my mind to make me believe I'm feeling this way because of my mom. I'm feeling sad and these constant emotions because I was missing her, but he'd try to make me believe it was because she was hurting me. So this went on for another year, and it was the same thing to the point where we stopped talking. My mom was like, I can't do this anymore. I can't just email you or have hiding emails or hiding conversations on the phone. You haven't visited me in months. I visited her 3 times. I think it was February, March, April. And after the April visitation, I no longer was going because my dad wasn't in support of it. And he caused so many problems between us that I couldn't even go there because my mom just had a baby. She didn't want to drive an hour to Cocoa Beach to my grandparents' house to visit me for the weekend. She wanted me to come to her house, and my dad wouldn't allow that. That wasn't going to happen. So continuously, he'd be like, your mom's crazy. Your mom has bipolar. Your mom has this and that. She's making up these things. He would say that she's lying to me. If she went on a trip and sent me pictures of the trip, he'd turn it around and be like, that is a photoshopped image. She's not actually on the trip. She's lying. And the weirdest things he would make up in his mind to try to convince me that my mom is only trying to harm me and hurt me and lie to me and doesn't want me to succeed in life because she is only better than her. All these things he'd fill my mind with. I got to the point where I stopped talking to her again for the second time. Through this, I went from April all the way till August with no communication. That whole entire summer, nothing. We weren't talking. There was nothing between us. And it was really sad. And it really hurt me because I felt like there was something lost, but I couldn't figure it out. And I knew it was my mom, but I couldn't accept it because I was hearing so much horrible things from my dad, and I wouldn't want to believe my dad would be lying to me or trying to do this on purpose. So at some point, I wanted a relationship. I wanted to see my sister. I just had a newborn baby sister, and I only saw her one time. And I felt like it wasn't right. I wanted to be part of her life. And my dad was like, oh, well, she can come visit you. She never does. But it's a newborn baby. You can't drive 3 hours with a newborn baby in the car. So it was just things like that. So finally, I was asking him and begging him and crying to him over and over, please let me visit my mom. Just for a weekend, something. I just want to go there and see my family. And it was always a no. It was always a no. No matter what, he was just like, it's not happening. You're not doing that. I'm sorry. And if you do, you're gonna have a problem with me, and it's gonna be chaos in the household, and you're gonna ruin your life, and I'm not gonna pay for your college, and I'm not gonna do this for you or that for you. I'm not gonna drive you anywhere. You're gonna have to take the buses and all these things, which I was just all over because I wanted a relationship with my mom. All of this chaos was just because I wanted to see my family. So I one day got to the point where I'm 17, and this was in August, 2 months ago. I said to my dad, I was like, I want to go see my mom. And he's like, no. And I was like, no, like, I'm gonna go see my mom. Like, I'm 17, and I haven't seen her. I've seen her a total of 3 times in the past 2 years, and that's not okay. Like, that was never the agreement. That was never established from the beginning. That was never the intent. So how come I'm still not being able to see any of my family, and you're controlling this, and basically controlling my life in a way that's unhealthy? So it was a Saturday, and I had a lot of issues. We were having a lot of fights, me and my dad, and it was the same thing, my stepmom fighting with me because of the topic of my mom. So one day, it was a Saturday, it was August 7th, and I packed my bags, and I said, I'm going back to my mom's. And he's like, no, you're not. And I was like, yes, I am. I'm going back to my mom's. And I'm sick of you telling me that I can't see her anymore. And the more you prevent me from being able to visit, the more I want to go back to her. And I'm done hearing that you're not going to let me visit her, because that's just not right to me. It's not right to my siblings. They ask about me. I can't even talk to them. You don't even allow me to do anything to do with them. I haven't even had a phone this entire time, just because you're afraid I'm going to reach out to my mom. For what reason is this really for? Is this because you want to benefit my life, or is it because you just want to win a side? So I packed my stuff and I walked to a Cabasco's Creamery, a plaza. I called my mom from a bakery, and I said, Mom, please pick me up. I want to stay with you. I want to be with you. And I haven't been able to speak to you in months. And I haven't been able to reach out. And it's not because I'm purposely not wanting to reach out. And the whole time she thought I was avoiding her. I can't. And no matter what I do, it's torture. He puts me through so much just so I can say hi to you. So she called me to Uber halfway and picked me up the other half, and I never went back. And this was 2 months ago, and I've been living with her, and it's been amazing. It's been absolutely
Bless you. Bless you for your strength. Bless you for your courage. And bless you for hearing your heart and using your mind. All those things worked so positively and correctly. And I can only imagine, I don't want to speak your words, but I'm so grateful to you for sharing this. And for those that are here, and there are some here now and some that will be coming later, who are experiencing this journey, and Dawn, who herself, as an adult, was a child of similar circumstances, but has endured. And Dawn, not at the moment, but before the film, I would like you to take time to speak. But why don't you introduce yourself briefly now, because we have we have another 5 minutes, and can I go 10 minutes more? Can I do that?
Yeah, just
okay. Thank you. So what I'd like to do is, if you would introduce yourself, explain the purpose of your being here, and that you're going to address more of the raising families.
Sure. My name is Donna DrMark, and like Ashley, I was an alienated child, erased from my father when I was 4, and I had spent my entire life not knowing what happened, and he just disappeared. So what happened was an identity crisis. There was trauma, there was abuse, there were all kinds of things that were part of what my mom thought was in my best interest, and it didn't really work out that way. And it wasn't until 2016 that I actually found my father. So I was erased from him for 16,060 days. It's a long time, and it's not fair. So it's really important that we understand the trauma that the child faces and what they're experiencing, and their lack of understanding that she's definitely been able to explain here. And I did find my father, and we had 720 days of knowing each other before he passed away.
Wow.
Of that 720 days, I think I had about 3 weeks FaceTime with him. The rest of it was by phone. So, and it sounds terrible, but it's actually a big blessing that I had that time, because it could have been worse. I could have found him when it was too late, and that would have been devastating. So I am very grateful for that short period of time, and I cherish it. So we are bringing the Erasing Family documentary film to you guys tonight. It's a documentary it's focused on exposing the family bond obstruction. So it's showing you how this breaks down. What happens when children are ripped out of a life or separated just by circumstances sometimes. Sometimes it's not intentional. It's not always an evil or an intended thing. It just happens. But we as adults now have to realize the importance of children, and we can't think about their best interests today. We have to really consider their best interest 20 years from now. Because they, like she very eloquently said, she wanted to see her mother. I wanted my dad to come and rescue me. These are thoughts that children have. You just don't know it. They have them. So we have to start letting them speak, and we have to listen to them.
Dawn, thank you. Dawn traveled very far with her family this afternoon to come here today and to help introduce the program, the movie that will be at 7. And but as you can see, tying in what Ashley's experience has been with her own and demonstrating and will further through the film. So you understand that the interventions that Pastor Jones can do, and others who are clergy, those who are therapists, those who work in school systems, which we're going to ask now about, and that is Kim Ross. Kim Ross is a therapist with Polk County School System, and Jen, you're in Pasco, and also an LCSW with the school system there. And I'd like you both to speak about the challenges that you have in identifying children who have behavioral issues, looking at how when you pick up on home dynamics, how and why certain decisions might be made within the school or they're not. And so, Kim, if we can begin with yourself for a few minutes. We have like 5 minutes remaining. So if we can take like 2 minutes with you and with Jen, if that's all right. Okay, thank you.
So my frustration as a mental health professional is there is no treatment for emotional abuse. For example, we've turned to DCF for help with emotional abuse. It's very hard to prove because a lot of these things are going on behind the scenes, and people, especially targets of abuse, don't know how to do the right documentation. There's a lot of different steps that need to happen in order to prove emotional abuse. So my frustration is, after 10 years of being an alienated aunt and going through the system of DCF, attorneys, mental health providers, dealing with school principals, nobody seems to get what to do. And so I'm advocating now for recognizing the emotional abuse that's happening in these cases with these high conflict families, and I'm wanting to work with the kids to help give them some skills, because many families don't have the resources to go get help for the mental health issues. So we work with kids on identifying them early, working with the principals, the teachers, the guidance counselors on how to stay neutral, because you got one parent tugging over here and you got another parent tugging over here. So it's very difficult to be in that situation where you're in the middle. So my role is just to help work with these kids, to give them resiliency, problem solving, to help educate them on healthy relationships. What do you do when you've got things going on with mom, things going on with dad, and how can you best take care of yourself? And this is a hard issue that we face, dealing with the emotional abuse issues and the fact that our system doesn't recognize that.
Kim, thank you. I had the pleasure of meeting you at Danica's Bubbles of Love, I think, event about 6 years ago in Central Florida. And we were in the parking lot, wondering who these kids are parking cars. They were your boys at the time. And you've introduced me to a number of people in Central Florida who I'm really grateful for. But your work in the school system is really critical, as well as it is frustrating. And I think we have to make a new initiative in this next year in changing that and bringing a new educational approach to the school systems. Danica, forgive me, I want to reach out to Jen, who's one of our therapists, and to speak about some of your experience that you might share with us, also here in the school system, and I think that would be really insightful.
Well, I'm in Pasco County Schools. My name is Jennifer Gardner. And right now over in Pasco, what they're doing is they're actually focusing, the entire district is moving trauma-informed right now, 100%. However, we're still in the same battle. So the district is doing what they're doing, and then student support, the social workers, the therapists, the counselors are all trying to address the children with their needs, but there's all those district politics going on. I do a lot of what you do on a daily basis, where I'm at right now. A lot of these children, if they're lucky, they have a one-parent home. And I'm in an elementary school. And it breaks my heart every day, because these are our behavior kids. These are the kids destroying the schools and tearing them apart. And when you just stop and take 5 minutes with them, everything comes out. And none of it had to do with school. And they just needed a few minutes, and they need to start, kind of digging through that. And a lot of times they don't have those people out there to hear them, to be there for them. They don't have them at home. That's why they come. They don't want to be at home. They don't, they're kind of on their own. They're raising themselves. If they have a parent, a lot of the ones I work with, they hate their parent. Maybe they know their dad. Maybe it's some sort of war between parents. I've noticed over the years working with the DCF system as it continually changes with its names and the kids that are removed and the foster care and all that. I've seen that children of divorce sometimes have tremendous amount of trauma, even more than a child that's been pulled out of their home. And the behaviors can be a whole lot more extreme, because those children that get pulled out, we immediately toss services in. Because that's what the system does. Okay, we're gonna pull you out. Now here's your therapist, here's your caseworker, here's that. But we don't do that for the children, separated families. So they're kind of out there, so that's why we're here.
What we do is we have them diagnosed, with ADD and ADHD, instead of looking at the source of their conflict, the conflict. And there needs to be a focus on proper protocols, and like I said, the protocols are absent. They're cookie cutter, and they're not addressing the real need. As you can see, Pastor, and everybody here, the subjects that have been brought up at this panel, which have everything to do with the work of the Toby Center and the work of the programs here at the Center for Manifestation, is to preserve families in all different aspects of and times of individuals and families' lives. But there are other topics that these topics need to be brought out in other formats, I think, and maybe we can create a series to do so that would be as expansive as this. We're concluding this panel approach. Right. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Over to the documentary that we're going to watch. So
I want to paraphrase Pastor Jones with two comments from his earlier and very eloquent and heartfelt presentation. First of all, Pastor, you said that the center is now in its 18th year. That is very significant because in Hebrew, the numeric equivalent, every number in Hebrew has a numerical equivalent, and that each letter of the Hebrew alphabet has a numerical value. And the number and the word chai means life in Hebrew. Its numerical equivalent is what, Jen? 18.
Wow.
18. And when synagogues would do their fundraising along the high holidays when everybody's in the synagogue, people would say, 1 times chai, which is $18. In some cases, it's 18,000. That's in the Upper East Side of New York. But in my synagogue, it was $18. Once chai, twice chai, 3 times chai. But not chai and goodbye. Chai is life. And 18, a very significant year. It's the year of our first year of partnership endeavor, and I'm just thrilled for that. But I also want to paraphrase one other thing, and then I'll thank you formally, of course. But Pastor, you said the word no. The word no means nothing when God says something. The word no means nothing when God says something. You know something? In Yiddish, it is said in the English translation, man makes plans and God laughs. Man makes plans and God laughs. So remember, no means nothing when God says something. And if you feel fearful, if you feel unable, if you feel you lack capacity or you lack understanding, guess what? God is telling you, no, you can't feel that way. You won't feel that way. There's a lesson here. And by the way, you have more courage, you have more stamina, you have more capacity, you have more ability to achieve. Don't give up. No, don't give up. And I'm in the choir, believe me. And I want to thank you all for being here, and again, Pastor Jones, Renee, for making this all happen, and for all of you for being here now out of your heart and your desire to learn, and to be a part of your and our community. I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart.
I too, as well as Dr. Jones, Lady Lisa Jones, and the entire CFM family would like to thank you all for coming by and just sharing what we want to hear, what we want to see in this community. I heard 2 words that is very important to me: shifting and transition. We are shifting to a place where we are able to now provide services at a higher scale for our community. We're in transition, so we're ready to make that happen, correct? Correct. Once again, thank you all so much for coming.
All right, we're going to turn it over to Dr. Jones to go ahead and give us our closing prayer, and then we'll be turning it over to Dawn for our documentary.
All right, let us pray. Eternal Father, we thank you that your compassion is embodied in this room, in the hearts of so many people who want to do so much good for so many others. We thank you that it could only be your heart of compassion that motivates people to make these kind of sacrifices in order to engage individuals in broken states. So we ask that you will look with blessing and favor and kindness upon those who are here. We ask that you would bless the work of their hands, bless the work of our hands as we partner together. We ask that you would give us wisdom to know how to meet the needs of families, particularly the needs of children. We ask that you would not only give us wisdom, but we also ask that you would give us continued resources, expanded resources, to be able to make a difference and bridge the gap. Now, we ask also that you will look upon our communities and the plight of our community, the condition of our families, and that you would help us, Lord, as it was in times before, to build strong communities, strong marriages, strong families, strong culture that will help to, Father, create an atmosphere of health and wholeness and well-being for the children in all of our families. We ask that you would look with favor and kindness, particularly upon this community where you have assigned us, and we ask that you would continue to bring to this community, through us and through others, resources that will advance your causes for well-being, for health, happiness, and wholeness in the lives of those who are citizens here in our community. Now, Father, we ask your blessing upon each person who has sacrificed and who have made an effort to be here tonight. We ask that you look with favor and kindness upon all of their respective missions and assignments and jobs and the careers in which they do so much good. Bless their families and favor them. Do them, Father, do them good because of their endeavor to do good for others. We ask this in the name of our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen.
We actually want to invite one of our amazing ministry members. She's a phenomenal coach, and we're going to have her come up and talk about her program, the Single Moms program, actually. And it might be worthwhile for any of you that are familiar with the single moms, know of single moms that might need some type of networking opportunity. So Melvina Mullins, we're going to have her come up and speak with you all briefly before we get the documentary started.
Hello, everybody. Well, I didn't know this was coming. But anyway, we have a single mother's outreach program. What we try to do is we work with the women, first of all, to help them as a person, as a woman first. We try to address the female herself. Before all the titles of being a mom and being, all the roles that a mother plays. So we work with the young women in the community, or not necessarily the community. It doesn't matter where they're from; they're all welcome. And so we address that. Then from every kind of area that you can think of, even if it's running a house, how to run your household effectively. If you're dealing with issues with the absent parent, whatever that we have these segments called, let's take it home, and we actually deal with whatever's going on at that time been married before, but for the most of our lives, it was just me and my kids, you know? And, I've been through the divorce situation and all the whole 9 yards, so it is a passion of mine, single mothers. And the point is that we want to help Asian women to be able to be more productive citizens, to bring the children up to be more productive citizens, to keep them out of the jails and things like that, and that we can stop the patterns of negative parenting of our children into a way of path of destruction. That's what we don't want that. So we're just kind of there, but we call it a cushion. Cushion is just a softer side. And what we try to do is build a rapport with the women to be able to feel comfortable enough to talk, because we talk and to get some of these things out. What we do also is we refer them out. So a lot of you are probably be asking for your information because we like to use resources to be able to help assist them perhaps in areas that we're not, as efficient in. But yeah, it's a community effort to just help strengthen the women so that we can strengthen our households. Thank you.
So Melvina actually has giveaways. So actually, when we're done, you can actually just come right on over here to her table. She has T-shirts as well as little bags. So you're welcome to just take one. That was so kind of her to do that. Thank you, Melvina. And right now we're passing out. There's a clipboard going around with a form that Dawn needs for everyone to sign. It's a disclosure for participation, and it's on a clipboard going around. For everyone that's going to be watching the documentary, you will have to sign the form, and it just says that you promise not to audio record, take photos or videos of the film, Erasing Family, as it's being projected. Sharing this online or with friends will ruin the chances of the film being released. So we do need for everyone to sign. I think it's at this table. It's going to be going around. So please be sure to sign it before the documentary starts.
Still running.
How do you shut it off? So I don't know.
Yeah, that's a good, yeah.
Okay.
Thank you for coming this afternoon. Talk to you again. Bye.